Hello, welcome. My name is Dan Meyer. I'm the editor-in-chief of RCR Wireless News. Thanks for joining us today. Today I am joined by Ian McLean, who's the VP of Strategy and Marketing at Mavenir. Ian, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, so the topic today is going to be the hot acronym of the month, year, quarter of NFV, or Network Function Virtualization, which has become a very hot topic in the wireless space, obviously in the telecommunications space as well, as companies are looking to do more virtualization for ways to be more agile, to launch services, to reduce costs. So hopefully to get from Mavenir today some insight into that topic and where we are in the NFV space. So yeah, maybe start off with, I guess, a quick intro of the company for those who don't know who Mavenir is.
Yeah, sure. Mavenir Systems is a supplier of 4G IP core networking solutions to mobile operators, and what we're really focused on is helping mobile operators transform their networks from 2G, 3G to 4G, which really is driven by two key trends, or two major trends, and one of them is the adoption of all IP technology, from the radio all the way up through the core network, right? So that's the IP RAN that you get with LTE, an evolved packet core network, and then an IMS network, right, to provide all the core networking services. And then that's one key trend. And then the other key trend really is the utilization or adoption of software-based networking solutions, which they'll implement on industry standard COTS hardware, right? And this whole transformation to software-based networks is really is taken the shape of and has been standardized, is being standardized by ETSI. And we all know now as NFV, right? So it's a magic three-letter acronym. That's a very, very significant trend for mobile operators in this transformation process. So this is something that Mavenir's embraced and we're capitalizing on, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to talk more about that with you today.
Great, great. Well, maybe we'll start off with, obviously NFV it is somewhat of a new term for perhaps a lot of people in the space, but for companies like yourselves who've been working on it for a while, I'm sure you're very familiar with it. But I guess what's Mavenir's general view, or what's your kind of, definition of what NFV is? I guess maybe start with that.
Actually, that's a fantastic question, right? So I think first and foremost, it's the utilization of software-based solutions, right? So historically, telecommunications vendors have been providing hardware-based solutions in order to provide scale and reliability that mobile operators need, right? These are networks that are designed to, in some cases, scale up to 100 million subscribers or more. And so vendors traditionally have provided purpose-built hardware and charged price premiums for that because there were heavy investments into purpose-built hardware in order to scale and be reliable. What we're finding now is that the advances in general-purpose compute platforms have been significant enough that the general-purpose computing can provide the scale that we need in order to build out very large, high-capacity networks. So we are leveraging those advancements in computing technology in order to be able to build the next generation networks in a software-based model. So we're seeing the transition from hardware-based networks to software-based networks. And I think that's fundamentally what it is. And what the industry has done is defined a framework, right? NFV is a framework that all of us can develop solutions for, so that mobile operators have the ability to build multi-vendor networks, and they can bring in different solutions from different vendors and have them all be deployed on a common virtualized platform or data center, if you will. So I think first and foremost, NFV is really about a standardized framework with which multiple vendors can provide software-based solutions that can coexist on a common virtualized platform.
Well, it seems like it's one of those things, and that really, it's been one of those topics that carriers have talked about for a long time. I mean, the multi-vendor infrastructure has been pretty common across the industry for years and years. But tying it all together or making it interoperable easier has been kind of a big challenge. And it seems like that's kind of where this really plays in, is the ability for carriers to not really worry about so much what name is on the box anymore. It's what's inside and how it can all operate together. That's key, and it seems like that's kind of where NFV is really coming into play with operators.
That's absolutely true. And there's one key component in that NFV introduces that really manage this multi-vendor environment where all these different solutions can coexist on a common platform. And that key component, or that new component, is the orchestrator, right? And so that's that let's say, that independent arbitrator of utilization of this platform, which is otherwise shared across all these different vendor solutions. And that's a new concept. What we're finding within the mobile operator community is that I think all of us sort of intuitively understand the role of the orchestrator in arbitrating the utilization of the platforms. But it's a new concept, and so I think operationally there's a little bit of trepidation or uncertainty as to how that will behave. We're seeing that when operators look at NFV solutions, these orchestrators are just now coming to market, and they're just now becoming generally available, let's say. In many cases, actually, a lot of the orchestrators that we're working with are not generally available yet. There's quite a few POCs that are ongoing, and we'll see that over the course of this year, more and more third-party orchestrators will become generally available. And so the timeline for NFV, because of the readiness for operators to kind of embrace this new operational model, and then the readiness on the part of these new components, we'll see that the timing for NFV, in a significant way, is more like in the 2016 plus timeframe, because this is new. It's really new. It's a new model. There's new components that are coming out. So it has a lot of promise, but I think it's still a little bit has a little bit of ways to go before it's matured to the point where we see kind of the first wave of adoptions and rollouts occurring.
Yeah, that's a great point, because it does seem like if you're just following just the general industry and all the announcements that are coming out, I mean, it seems like the NFV acronym or SDN or whatever you want to look at, it's almost part of every press release that comes out. And so you would think that NFV and virtualization was here now and carriers were actually using it. But you're right. I mean, from my own talking to carriers and different companies, these are still concepts sometimes, or to an extent, that operators are still trying to get their heads around. It seems like in a lot of cases, there's carriers have traditionally been very hardware-based companies, and they like to see things and know how they work, and there's that sort of sense of security having something that they're used to. Where this virtualization move is a new venture for them, and that's something you have to really, I guess, trust and hopefully that it works well on the network. So it does seem like that's a good point that while NFV is a hot topic, it's not really a commercial topic, I guess, yet. Is that be correct?
Yeah, I think that's very correct. We'll begin to see that there's commercially available solutions in 2015. Still, it takes time to deploy them into the operator networks and for them to become to be launched live and supporting commercial service. What we do at Mavenir often is when we begin to discuss NFV and talk about the migration or transformation to software-based models, we kind of break down the NFV model into some of the components, and where we'll focus attention on is the VNFs, right? So if I can actually just define that term, if it's not familiar to everybody, you have NFV, which is the network functions virtualization, and then if you just move things around, you have things virtualized network functions. It seems a little bit silly, but anyway, the VNFs are very significant in this framework, because the VNFs effectively are the discrete network elements which we have in a network architecture today. So those components, such as if I refer directly to IMS, components such as SBC, CSCF, TAS for telephony application server, these all effectively map to VNFs. And one of the things that we'll see where NFV can actually be, the migration to NFV can be eased, is that you have the ability to bring in a VNF into your network now, even before you have the full NFV framework in place, even before you have an NFV orchestrator. So the VNF is effectively a software-based network element. And the software-based network element can be provided based on in a virtualized environment on industry standard COTS hardware. And this is one of the things that Mavenir is doing today. We have a fully virtualized portfolio of products, of software-based products. We have over 30 products across EPC and IMS technologies and domains. And what we're actively doing are delivering virtualized solutions to operators. Now, they don't have NFV networks in place. They don't have orchestrators in place. But they're able to introduce these discrete network elements into their network topologies today, which are software-based, which are virtualized, that can provide some of the benefits of this new technology. So I think one of the benefits certainly is the experience that the operations teams can gain with this new technology in terms of managing the the virtualization environment in terms of deploying industry standard COTS hardware, right? No longer kind of departing from the purpose-built hardware that they've always deployed in the past, now deploying on industry standard blade server technologies from, Cisco, HP, IBM, or whoever. Get more familiar with, OpenStack, KVM, VMware as a virtualization layer and how they manage that. And then otherwise taking very familiar network elements such as a packet gateway, such as a CSCF or an SBC or a telephony application server. And when they implement that in the virtualization model, now you have the ability to scale it very flexibly. And one of the things we talk about in NFV in some of the use cases is the ability to scale up, scale down, have the use of capacity elasticity, where network solutions can react to traffic spikes and congestion by requesting more computing resources from the virtualization layer. We can provide these solutions today, albeit not in a full NFV framework, but as a VNF. And that's part of the education that we're doing with operators, is that you don't have to wait till 2015, 2016 to begin to leverage some of the benefits of NFV. And this is, again, just a part of the dialogue that we're having with our customers, and it's a model that we've already begun to deploy into and are pursuing commercially. So we've actually had, and we've got a virtualized messaging solution that's been commercially deployed since early 2013. So this is technology which is very proven and we're very comfortable with. So I think that's an encouraging sign to the community that I just wanted to share.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good point, because it does, from again the conversations I've had with carriers, again, they are excited about this, but they are looking at doing this on a on kind of a piece-by-piece basis. I mean, they're not looking to roll it out broadly across the network. They're looking at, maybe virtualize one aspect, maybe perhaps billing, OSS, something. They're virtualizing different parts of the network to kind of get a feel for it. It seems, to at least get more comfortable with it. And then as they get more comfortable, as kind of the standard becomes a little more stable, just as it kind of matures, then they're looking to obviously broaden that deployment and become more comfortable with it. It seems like you said, a couple of years from now, I'm sure it'll be very common for carriers to be virtualizing an increasing aspect or increasing range of their network operations. I mean, at some point, even their core, like we talked about a lot too, is virtualizing a lot of their operations. So that's moving along pretty quickly, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, honestly, I think in this model, there's, I would say that there's some low-hanging fruit in terms of what can be virtualized. I think applications which are typically more signaling intensive are where you're not doing maybe a high degree of packet handling and packet processing. So typically, signaling applications are considered to be candidates for virtualization, early candidates for virtualization, as opposed to more media plane applications. So we're seeing that what we provide at Mavenir are IMS-based voice over LTE and rich communications solutions. Many of those applications in the IMS network are signaling intensive, signaling only applications. Those are certainly applications which are ripe to be deployed in a virtualized environment today. I think when you get into more of the session border controllers, where you're doing more media and the EPC, those are now just coming to market more widely in terms of being software-based. It's something that Mavenir's been doing for a while, but I would say across the entire vendor community, it's something that's just sort of rolling out. There were actually a lot of announcements by various vendors, including Mavenir, introducing virtualized EPC portfolios just this past Mobile World Congress. So we're seeing EPC is now sort of arrived in terms of being able to be deployed in a virtualized model. I would say IMS has already kind of been there. So what we've been doing that actively. I referenced the messaging solution. That's an INS messaging solution, which is IMS based. We deployed that last year. So IMS is a prime candidate to be virtualized today. EPC is right behind it, and then we'll see that there's a lot of other components of the operator's network that will get virtualized in over the course of the next year or two. And then I just see NFV really just being a nice, easy migration to path to NFV when the operator is ready to bring in the orchestrator solution and then begin to really co-locate and co-reside applications, different types of applications together, perhaps from the same vendor, and then really get into, I think, the longer-term model, which is a multi-vendor environment where you have multi-vendor solutions residing on the same common virtualized platform.
Yeah, sure. No, I guess when you're working with some of these carriers at this point, what are, I guess, the biggest challenges, the greatest concerns? I mean, what are you hearing back from them at this point that's maybe slow or not slowing down, but what's our concern right now at this point of being quicker in deploying these sorts of solutions?
I think I mentioned earlier the operations models, right? I think operators, historically were a conservative lot, and the mobile community has been. That's not a bad thing, but the operational models where we have one throat to choke, right? In terms of the service level agreements, and I have 5 nines, and I can call 1-800 Mavenir or 1-800 whoever. They have to get used to saying, boy, I have to figure out first whether this is a hardware problem, and I got to call these guys. This is a software problem. So I think they have to get their heads around that. That's one issue. We kind of discussed that you can do maybe the migration introduction of VNFs, one by one. I think they have to kind of accept a migration model where you can do maybe solutions one by one. Not all vendors actually have entirely software-based portfolios. Many vendors actually in the process of migrating existing applications into a software-based model. And so you don't have broad availability of an entire portfolio which is software-based today. So you can't do it all at once. And I think we tend to think, okay, well, I'm implementing this new technology. I'm going to kind of do the whole thing at once. Piecemeal is, I think, the best way to go, where you do one network element at a time. But I think the broad availability of software-based solutions is not there today. So I think that's going to evolve, and that's kind of slowing things down a little bit. And as I said, the general availability of the the orchestrators from companies such as HP and others, are just now coming to market. So as these things become generally available, then operators can begin to test them and validate them in lab environments, then production environments. And honestly, I think if they're not GA today, then it takes another 12 months before they're going to be live, right? So it's just sort of a process that we're going through, and I think those are probably the 3 key reasons which are kind of slowing down the adoption of NFV. But it's encouraging to me to see that there's really broad acceptance of what the benefits are of NFV, and it seems that everybody I talk to is committed to going there. It's just a matter of when. And so again, we work with operators to say start piecemeal, start with a few 1 or 2 VNFs now, and then as the orchestrators become available, let's do the validation testing, and then we'll introduce them into the network, etc. So those are some of the reasons. That's my feel as to where we're at in the market today.
Gotcha. Now, are there any challenges, I guess, for the NFV vendors at this point? I mean, it does seem like that's a standard. Etsy is still kind of finalizing, it seems, I think from what I read, kind of finalizing some parts of it. Are there any challenges, I guess, still for a Mavenir or other NFV vendors out there, and I guess maybe even being more aggressive in rolling out their products too?
Yeah, it's actually, that's a really good question. What may not be well understood about Etsy's standardization of NFV is that really it's a framework, and it's not necessarily intended to be a 3GPP specification where all of the interworking between the components is actually defined down to the discrete message level and the bits and the bytes, if you will. And so it's a relatively open or loose standard, and it's really defining a framework. So what that means is the implication to us as vendors is that we need to collaborate in order to agree upon specific protocols that will be implemented between the elements, and how the different use cases will be carried out. So I mentioned earlier elasticity, scaling up, scaling down. Well, that's a function of a VNF talking to an orchestrator. And right now, Etsy hasn't specified what that interface is and exactly what the protocols and the parameters are for the various dialogues that needs to take place. So that's not well understood, and what it means that the vendors really need to be relatively open and flexible in terms of how they will behave in this new framework.
Does it seem like the vendors are working well together on this? I mean, I know there's been some different organizations that have popped up to kind of unite vendors in a lot of these aspects. Does it seem like, from your point of view, that the vendor community is open to this kind of collaboration at this point?
Well, Dan, the reality is that some are more open than others. So, I can't lie. So I think some vendors are a little bit more. Yes, they're doing NFV. They are doing virtualization, but it's only within their own environment. So I know there's a couple of major vendors that have that approach today.
Yeah.
I know there's several other vendors, Mavenir included, that sort of embrace a more open and collaborative model. I think in the end we'll all get there to where it's open and collaborative, and the reality is that's where we've always behaved historically within the industry. All of our success depends on fully interoperable architectures that allow us to deploy our solutions into multi-vendor environments. So that is the reality. I know we'll all get there. It's just not where we're at today.
Yeah, interesting. Well, Ian, definitely great insight into to where we are at NFV, and obviously, like I mentioned, it's one of those topics that, you know, at the trade shows that I attend and talking to different companies, it's a topic that it's become increasingly part of the conversation. I mean, you see the shows now, and there's whole sessions dedicated to this, and the turnout's always been really good. So obviously, people are interested in this, and it's great to get some good insight from Mavenir on this. So we definitely appreciate the time and information today.
It's my pleasure talking about the topic. It is a lot. There's still a lot of excitement about it. It was a really big deal at World Congress this past year. All the conferences that I'm at are still, you know, we're still talking about it. So, you know, given that I think it's 18, 24 months out before it's really live and commercial, it's going to remain a hot topic for the coming year, certainly. And as I said, I think what we're going to see are increasingly announcements by vendors and operators alike for deploying solution in virtualized environments. And you know, they may not be fully NFV compliant as of yet. So and people aren't going to necessarily understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Is it NFV? Is it not NFV? But I do think virtualization as a technology we're seeing that it's being proven. I think VNFs are going to be introduced into commercial service, and they already have been this year. So we're going to see that it's happening now, but it's going to be a bit of a long road. There's going to be a long dialogue about NFV. So we're excited about it, and I'm glad to be here talking to you about it. Thanks.
Yeah, well, good. We'll definitely have to make sure we kind of tamp down the hype a little bit, just to make sure people don't get too excited too soon. It sounds like you said, there's still a bit of ways to go on this, but like you said, Jeremy, it's one of those things that it's going to come. It's just a matter of getting it right and making sure that there's enough understanding and cooperation between the vendors to make sure it works right. So
exactly.
Should be interesting. Well, hopefully we'll be able to catch up again on this. Like you said, it's a topic that's very hot right now. Maybe we can again touch base on this at some point in the future too, to kind of get some more updates. But we again appreciate the insight today, and thanks so much for that. And we'll talk again soon.
Thank you very much, Dan.
All right.